It's a great pleasure to be here to celebrate Earth Day and to celebrate with these two other amazing poets, Ellen and Anne. Thank you for your beautiful work. I'm also very happy to help celebrate Alaska Quarterly Review, which has done so much for writing and writers for so long, and Ron for shepherding that effort for so many years. So thank you so much for inviting me today. Even though my background does not say so, I am speaking to you from the Sonoran Desert, where I live most of the year. And this is Arizona is home to 22 federally recognized tribes, and it's currently the home of the Tohono O'odham and the Yaqui people. And I am very grateful to share the community with their history and their present and their future. I'm going to read poems, and it's I was shocked to see how long ago these poems appeared in Alaska Quarterly Review. I'm going to have to send you some new work, I think. But these poems were in my 2005 book, Genius Loci. And one of my favorite things is to be out in nature with field biologists and to learn from them, and then try to turn their scientific talk, which can be really, well, let's say dull, into some kind of a song. So this is a walk with some naturalists in the desert Southwest. The naturalists. When the naturalists see a pile of scat, they speed toward it, as if a rare orchid bloomed in their path. They pick apart the desiccated turds, retrieving a coarse black javelina hair or husk of piñon nut, as if unearthing gems. They get down on their knees to nose into flowers a micron wide, belly flowers, they say, because that's what you get down on to see them. Biscuit root, buffalo gourd, cryptogams, to them are hints of some genetic memory fossilized in their brains, an ancient music they try to recall because although they can't quite hear the tune, they know if they could sing it, that even their own wild rage and lust and death terrors would seem as beautiful as the endolithic algae that releases nitrogen into rocks so that junipers can milk them. The forest behind me is in the Canadian Maritimes, where I've spent summers since I was a young child. And this also was in Alaska Quarterly. And, I love picking wild fruit up there. And I think probably the wild fruit, the wild berry season is really close to Alaska's, although we don't have salmon berries. And this is a sequence of poems. I'm just going to read the first two, but it kind of goes through the whole season of the wild berries, from the strawberries to the raspberries to the blueberries and gooseberries and blackberries. I'll just read the first two. The sequence opens with a quotation from Paul, 1 Corinthians, but take heed lest by any means this liberty of yours become a stumbling block to them that are weak. 1. At the cusp when spring begins to turn into summer, come the strawberries, little baby's knuckles lying low in the scrub, so that one who would taste their juice must kneel or lie on the ground, testing her gentleness. The season is short, yet if she grows impatient, she will carry home only the blood soaked into the knees of her jeans. They are so precious that a woman might refuse to eat them. 5 years worth in jars, untouched on the shelf, but she would grow bitter from trying to hold on to that which will pass. 2, if you want wild raspberries, level an acre of forest and leave the lot a mess of bleaching brush. The brambles will crawl out of the rubble as if to compensate the land for its grievous loss. To pick the berries, you must walk knee-deep in deadfalls, waist-high in thorns, and compete with yellow jackets. You must inch your way into thickets, crushing a path through the canes, throwing off the green beetle and white spider that rise in your bucket like stones in a farmer's field. And when you are done, backtracking through your own destruction, you will step free of the uncertain ground and walk happily, perhaps through a meadow of ferns, to come home, lay ice on the bee stings, and savor in small handfuls the healing taste of the wild. May you all have many berries this summer, wherever you are. So I'm going to read a few poems now from a new manuscript, which is called The Excavations, which I've just finished. Again, I will be bi-regional, but the first one is set in the Southwest. I went up to hike in the Sedona regions, beautiful red rock country, and there was such wildfire there that one couldn't get into any trail. Everything was closed. It was perilous. National Forest, Bell Rock, Courthouse Rock, Devil's Bridge. Time has made the landforms and they grow more beautiful with age. Names come from the human world, possession bleeding into perception. What if the land had its own language? No alphabet, but steady drone of grasslands, groan of mountains, drought fires, scream, a drawn out cry, hiss of rain, simmer of seeds stirring restless in the soil, pure presence and process breaking into the place made new by cataclysm. That's the planet speaking. And she cares about the fissures in the dry riverbed, about the lack of ripe cherries in Washington and blue crabs in Maryland, Savannah lions down by half. She cares about the sunrise, dandelions, the PCBs. She embraces whatever we give her, blood, bone, rust, become her. She invented us to do the work the word care implies, invented us to invent words, the thicket of endless possibilities, so death does not get the last word. So groan and hiss could be accompanied by our chatter, dirge, thesis, and psalm. If you hear some strange noises, I have a puppy who is breathing heavily beside me because she loves poetry reading. So please welcome her, and I hope she won't be too distracting. She has a limited period of time for which she likes poetry, but hopefully she will continue for a bit longer for us. This is another poem from this manuscript, and this was a poem that was in Scientific American. It was such a thrill and honor to be in that magazine, and this poem set in New Hampshire, where I was teaching at the Environmental Literature Institute, which is a wonderful program for largely for high school teachers. And we went out and had a field experience, and this poem came out of that. Letter to 2050. The Squamscott River grew lazy in early summer. Muskrat rose and dove, heron swept the air and landed, and hemlocks that had survived another century's practice of harvesting their bark were thriving. Some suffered from beaver girdles and the predation of woolly adelgids, but still, the pileated woodpeckers found what they required in the snags. This is how it was for us, pulling threads of hope out of the air as if we had the skill to weave them back into webs. We surprised ourselves when it worked. So much needed to be undone. But I promise you, as paltry as our efforts may seem to you, no, I won't justify our failures. The story of the Alewives' return, that's what I wanted you to know, because it helps to think of desires that last for centuries without being satisfied. How far inland did the Alewives come, I wondered? The dam removed after 300 years, and in the first year then, they came in a rush. Locals could hear the gulls gathered in the estuary in their joy, and the Alewives swam and swam to the reaches of their ancestors. 11 miles and 300 years of appetite for place. Their genes remembered and knew how to find. The Abenaki offered a welcome back ceremony, and fishers gathered, human, cat, and bird, to feast. And the memory that had been thwarted for centuries became a fertile flow. So I've been really fortunate when I'm up in the Bay of Fundy to go out to a research site on a little tiny island, it's about a mile long, Kent Island, where Bowdoin College has been doing scientific research, I think since the 40s, 30s or 40s. And there's a bird I've come to know there. It may be important for you to know that the Gulf of Maine and the Bay of Fundy, that North Atlantic, western part of the North Atlantic, is heating up 4 times faster than the oceans anywhere else. And it's largely because of the double factor of a hotter Gulf Stream coming up and then the melt coming down from the glaciers of Greenland. So everything is in a very tenuous state. But one of the species that's been studied there for a very long time, since the mid-50s, is this marvelous pelagic bird, the Leeches storm petrel. It lives at sea all year, but when it's time to nest, it digs a burrow in forests like the one behind me. And I'm absolutely in love with this bird and with the scientists who've been studying these birds on Kent Island since the 1950s. It's probably one of the longest single site, single species studies of any bird anywhere. So I've got a whole series of poems called Field Studies. I think I'll have time to read you 3 of these poems. Navigation of the Leeches storm petrel. Science wanted to know what they know. Sooty little tube-nosed ocean runner, fork-tailed forest burrower, night wanderer, transient in the sweet musk of woods. How do they find their way? What's their sense of place? Do they know a sense of belonging when they return from a year at sea to breed in the forest where they hatched? Or is it just work to repair the burrow? They stagger around at night on forest paths. They don't understand the land, but they need it. A man who studied the colony for half a century took a few petrels to Ireland to see if they could find the way back. First bird got back before the man. Was it 9 days or 13? Do the numbers matter? When the bird just knew its inner compass, reading longitude and latitude, skirting open ocean swells to arrive exactly where it knew it should be. Sight fidelity of the Leeches storm petrel. At night, the pairs chuckle and purr, sometimes in harmony, nestled in their burrows, ghosting the forest with their chatter. They have a lot to say after spending so long in solitary flight with nothing on their minds but light and wind and the scent of prey that draws them onward. They might fly 400 kilometers from land, seeking lanternfish and krill, loading oil to bring home for the chick. They winter at sea, intimate only with water, until some brain or body switch flips. Who can explain the call for another, the call for home? Together again, same time, same place next year, more faithful to burrow than to spouse, grooming the nest with soft leaves, fresh grass. They talk and talk throughout the night. And I'll end with this one. Petrel chick. What did I know? Lying in the darkness where I had hatched. At first, I loved the smell of loam, musk, the dampness of the underneath. Then came a fishy scent, though what did I know of fish? Bill to bill, my lunch was served. I had no control over where I lived, when, or what I ate, but sufficient to my status as a puff of proto feathers. The meals kept tunneling down from the spot of light at Burrow's End. I knew to raise my mouth to what arrived. I had no idea what I was or what I was meant to be. Ridiculous. I know that I should have a voice. Sleep and eat and roll over in the earthen dark. That was life. Until I grew so blubbered, I could barely turn in my sleep. I squeezed out of that earth hold when I caught the open ocean scent that told me I had wings, and I was gone into sea-spangled spume and sky.